It was an awful lot of hometown pride, and that's what kept most of these teams going.
Buoyed by newfound world peace and an influx of energetic, if not aimless young men suddenly back home from the war, grassroots baseball exploded in Oklahoma. The Sooner State League was formed in 1947 with 6 original teams: the Ada Herefords, the Ardmore Indians, the Duncan Cementers, the Seminole Oilers, the McAllister Rockets, and the Lawton Giants.
Oh, baseball was the king, absolutely. There was a huge boom after World War II. People had been saving. They hadn't had much entertainment. This is before residential air conditioning, before television. Ball clubs across the country sprouted up like mushrooms. Sooner State League was just one of the many leagues. There were 59 leagues in 1949, well over 400 teams across the country from Class D, which the Sooner State League was, up to Class AAA, which was the highest minor classification. Of course, you had the 2 major leagues.
The Sooner State League instantly brought a steady dose of live baseball to a half-dozen Oklahoma communities, but was by no means the earliest example of organized baseball in the state. It wasn't even close.
The first baseball game in what is now Oklahoma was in 1882 between Krebs and Savannah, when the unassigned lands, the old Oklahoma country, was opened on April 22nd, 1889. On June 30th, there was a game in Guthrie between Oklahoma Station, or Oklahoma City, and Guthrie. From 1904, when the first professional teams appeared in Oklahoma Territory and Indian Territory, there were dozens of cities that had professional baseball. So it's very much in Oklahoma's DNA. Ada had had great success as an independent. It wasn't the Herefords, they called themselves the Independents. It was a semi-pro team that played during the 30s and before the Herefords came around.
The end of World War II brought peace, but also a new appetite for leisure. The giant exhale prompted by the ceasefire quickly turned into a playful restlessness as scores of young men and women sought new, exciting directions in their lives. With baseball already America's pastime, some local men decided to take a swing at it in Ada.
Ada Herefords were Ada's only professional baseball club. They came about really through the efforts of Dr. A.R. Sugg, who built a beautiful Art Nouveau building in Ada, and a fellow who was an insurance agent named Hugh Cal Clanton, who had been the 1916 captain of the OU baseball team, played minor league ball for 15 years, and got one at bat with the Cleveland Indians in 1922, and he struck out. This was not a semi-pro league. This was a honest-to-goodness professional league, member of the National Association of Professional Baseball Leagues.
The Ada Herefords represented a higher level of baseball. Essentially farm teams for the majors, the Sooner State League represented a chance for players to break into the big leagues. The Herefords provided a legitimate path for young, aspiring ball players to fulfill their boyhood dreams, but it wasn't easy.
They were an affiliate of the St. Louis Browns, which became the Baltimore Orioles. If they didn't like what they saw, they sent the farm boy in bib overalls back to the farm. They're kids. They were 17, 18, 19 years old. Most of them had never been away from home before. A lot of them lived in people's homes. They were on their own for the first time. A lot of them were veterans and were on the GI Bill, so come September, they were going back to college. It was tough to make it to the show because there were only 400 slots in the major leagues. About 60 of the 3,000 who had played in the Sooner State League actually made it to the major leagues. It was almost a catch and release situation till about 1954. A player would be signed. They could play them without a contract for 5 days. If they liked what they saw, they could sign them to a contract and either get promoted on up or cut him at the end of the season. The pay was low. I mean, it was done for love of the game.
The Ada Herefords and the rest of the Sooner State League teams toiled all summer long under the sweltering Oklahoma sun. If there is any truth to the old saying that familiarity breeds contempt, that most likely was the case among the Herefords and their league rivals.
They played 140 game seasons, 70 home, 70 away. The circuit was compact, and the idea was that they could drive to the game play it, and drive back, and not incur meal money and hotel bills for their teams. If they're playing a Seminole or Shawnee, it'd just be a drive over and drive back. There aren't hardly any days off. They played every day. A 140-game season would begin mid to third week of April and then run through Labor Day. They'd keep double headers to a minimum only to make up or for a holiday, for Memorial Day, Labor Day, or Independence Day. The games typically would start at 8:15 at night. Remember, we didn't have daylight savings time then, so it was broad daylight that late. And they'd go 2 or 3 hours, and everybody'd go home.
Baseball diamonds sprung up in the most interesting places during these years. The Ada Herefords had perhaps the oddest and least player-friendly field in the entire Sooner State League, if not all of organized baseball.
It was 275 to right field. It was 428 to left field. Oddest shaped ballpark in America. There was a rodeo, and the Ada Rodeo was huge. And Ada had a 12,000 seat rodeo arena. It was very oddly configured for baseball, but baseball was played there from 47 to 54. One of the old catchers, Charlie Hopkins, who caught there in 48 and 49, said that a rabbit would have to pack his lunch to cross the ball field because there was no grass whatsoever on the diamond. The lighting at Hereford Park, is what it was called, was terrible. There was a sports writer that said he had no understanding of why old married couples would come out in the dark to watch a ball game. Bobby King, who'd played second base in 1948 and 1949, said that the manager could not see his right fielder from the Hereford's dugout, and the other team, the visitors, couldn't see their left fielder from the Hereford's dugout. It was just too dark.
Although starry-eyed players poured their hearts and souls into the game, the business of baseball in Ada, Oklahoma proved a tough road indeed. Community leaders did all they could to keep the team afloat, including selling shares to the general public at one point. All kinds of promotions were mounted, but like for other cities in the Sooner State League, it became more and more of a struggle to keep the team on the field.
Had pretty good success their first year, and then their second year, things were tough. It was a small crowd. You'd only get, at best, 600 a night. They sold the club to a car dealer named Kaysen, and after 2 years, he couldn't afford the baseball habit, and sold to a group led by Lawrence Sanford and Guy Thrash. They held on to the club until July of 1954. At that time, after having made the last 3 payrolls out of his pocket, Sanford had had enough. He turned the franchise back to the Sooner State League. The Baltimore Orioles, who were the parent team at that time, released everybody. So there was no team, and then a fella in the cement business named Mayfield came in, took over the club, renamed them the Cementers, and operated for another 5 weeks until the season ended. He tried to keep baseball in Ada, but frankly, he had been so abrasive with the Orioles that he was blackballed. So the only baseball in Ada after 1954, I'm afraid, was Sandlot.
In 1955, the Ada Herefords folded up shop and moved to Texas, where the team survived for 2 more years as the Paris Orioles. But shifting social and economic landscapes soon spelled the end for small-town baseball altogether.
By 1955 in the Sooner State League, every team had a working agreement with a major league club. The independents got to the point where they couldn't survive. Everybody became a farm club, and it took a lot of the excitement and took a lot of the esprit de corps out of the game, because it wasn't a rivalry between Ada and Ardmore. It was the Orioles farmed hands versus the Indians farm hands. And it just wasn't as exciting. Oklahoma's small-town baseball ended in 1961. The coffin drivers were residential air conditioning and television. I don't know what year KTEN went on the air, but I suspect they picked up Dizzy Dean and Pee Wee Reese doing the game of the week. And why go out and swelter at a ballpark when you can stay home in the air conditioning?
For more than a century and a half, competitive baseball has existed in one form or another in the United States, evolving yet basically staying the same. The Ada Herefords enjoyed a brief run, but will always have its own chapter in the big book of baseball lore. And as memories of those Sooner State League days fade, the sport itself rolls on, capturing the imaginations of new generations along the way.
Baseball it's American. It captures all of our virtues and a lot of our vices. It's a rock that Americans can cling to in an uncertain time. The bat and the ball haven't changed. It's the only game where the defense has the ball. The allure is the strategy. It's 90 feet to first base. It's 9 innings. These things have been unchanged since the 1850s, and it works.